Welcome to the Soul Infused Monday Show, your show for an inspired and meaningful week. Today's topic is how to handle resistance on your spiritual journey. Resistance is a big topic. And before I jump in, I'm going to wait for a moment because Facebook changed a few things and people are having a hard time joining in, I heard. So I'm going to take a moment to wait until people jump in. If you are already watching and you see and hear me, leave me a comment below, say hello, click the like or love button, and I'm going to start in maybe in about 30 to 60 seconds. And if you are already here and you are waiting with me, what I am recommending you to do, or if you're watching the replay, use this moment of time to remove any distractions, to take a deep breath, to let yourself arrive, and we're going to start in just a moment. And if you see and hear me, leave me a comment. I appreciate that. When things get changed, it takes a while to adjust and to move into it. So I wasn't even aware of the changes on Facebook, but it changed a lot for people on how to join. So anyway, I'm gonna give it like 30 more seconds and then we're gonna get started. And also, just so you know, comments are also delayed. I might not see them right away, but leave me a comment. Click the love and like button because that's the only way I know that I can actually engage with you. Okay, let me get started. Welcome to the Soul Infused Monday Show, your show for an inspired and meaningful week. And today's topic is how to handle resistance on your spiritual journey. And to start with, your personal resistance can have many different layers. So I'm going to share a few things that is helping me. I came up with a metaphor, an analogy lately, or I came up with an analogy just a couple of days ago that was helping me to move through my own resistance on this spiritual journey. So I'm going to share a few things. However, I'm not going to be able to tell you how to handle your own resistance because you might have to do the deep inner work in order to resolve some of your own personal issues, because resistance shows up in many different ways. Resistance can show up in fear, in procrastination, in self-judgment. Resistance can show up in many different ways. And when on any journey, whether it's spiritual or not, but if you're on a spiritual journey for me means also you're doing the own personal growth work. You are exploring, you are discovering, you are shifting, you're peeling off the layers to be connected and to be in touch with your higher guidance, whatever that means to you. For me, it's being connected to the soul, to be repolarized so that I'm living a soul-infused life and not being too caught up in the lower energies that keep us from doing the things that we really want to do, or maybe that we are meant to do. And I encounter resistance like anyone else. I'm the queen of resistance. Sometimes I say, especially when you do things outside your comfort zone, the more you are outside your comfort zone, the more resistance you will experience. So if you are not doing anything that is challenging you in some way, you also don't feel as much resistance. And one thing is not better than the other. You don't have to be constantly outside your comfort zone or anything. But the question is how to handle that resistance, because the reality is everybody experiences resistance. And just knowing about it or understanding it alone doesn't help, because the same way that you understand most likely, or that you also know that judging yourself is not helpful. Judging yourself or being in shame and guilt is low vibration. It's not helpful. And yet you still judge yourself sometimes. And yet you experience all these emotions because you're a human being. And as a human being, you are on this journey of spiritual growth, on the spiritual growing, on the spiritual journey, and you are not a robot or perfect. So first of all, be in acceptance that resistance is part of the journey. if you're not experiencing resistance, it's because you're not really moving anything. Because resistance is also reaching an obstacle, and there's friction, and it's a protection mechanism. So if you are experiencing resistance, welcome to the club. Nothing is wrong with you. You're just a normal human being. And the question is not how do I get rid of resistance, is how do I maneuver through it, and how to do the things anyway that you want to do. Now, I want to share an analogy with you that I came up with when I was talking to a friend and she's a very successful business coach, and I am surrounded with a lot of really incredible coaches and healers, and some of my dearest clients and most amazing people I work with are leaders themselves in some way or another. And sometimes you have that image of someone that has it all together. No one has it all together all the time. We all get to do the work, and that's the beauty of it. That's not a weakness, that is a strength. So having resistance often comes with having judgment around having resistance. So the first thing I want to give you today is to remove the judgment around having resistance or being in resistance, because it's part of the journey. And if you have resistance and judgment at the same time, it just feeds each other, and that is even more challenging. So number one, be okay that you have resistance on the journey. Take a deep breath right now. Resistance is okay. Judging it is not helping it. Judging resistance is not going to ease resistance. It's just going to make it worse. So in order to handle resistance, first of all, just accept that it's part of the journey. Just accept that it's part of the journey. And sometimes some resistances is easier to maneuver and just move forward with it, or just keep walking with it. And some you need to do the deeper inner work, because it's attached to a trauma that maybe doesn't make you feel safe, or that you feel insecure about something, or you don't feel good enough, or not worthy, not strong enough, something, because it's also part of the protection mechanism. So another tip is not to look at resistance necessarily only as something bad. Look at it as an indicator to look deeper, because maybe something underneath is coming up for healing, right? So first, accept that it's there. It's part of the journey. Don't put too much energy in fighting it. Then remove the judgment, and then even use it to see, okay, I'm resisting this for so long, or I'm resisting this particular thing I wanted to do. Maybe it is to ask for a raise. Maybe it is to have a tough conversation with your partner. Maybe it is to travel by yourself. Whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. You know your own resistances. To check, okay, I've been resisting this for a while. What is underneath that I can actually look and use the inner work with, or the inner work for? And the other thing, the analogy that I came up with is, and I called it, so how to become a spiritual skydiver. Now, whether you have done skydiving before or not, doesn't matter. The analogy will work. Hopefully, I'm just sharing. Obviously, I don't know if it's going to be valuable or helpful for you, but it was valuable for me. I did skydive. Like, I did it once many, many, many years ago when I was still in Germany. Like, it feels like a million years ago, but I jumped once from a plane into the empty space. So I know it even out of personal experience. But I was talking to my friend, and she shared also that she had that experience, and that moment of jumping and how scary that is. So I felt that as an analogy on this journey of growth, of exploration, spiritual awakening, whatever you want to call it, even just life in general, it's the unknown that scares us the most. We want to have it controlled. We want to figure things out. The mind wants to plan. If we don't have a certain type of security, we freak out. Now, that's why the inner work is so important, and the repolarization to connect to your higher self or to soul or to God, whatever your version of it is, because there is no such thing that control and security on a, human plane. Everything is uncertain. The only constant thing is change. Now, imagine your life being like a skydive. And for me, and your life looks different than my life. But since February, I am traveling, have let go all of my things. I let go of my home. I'm on the journey of finding a new home for me. So in that analogy for me is in February, I jumped. Yeah, I as if I would call this analogy, I jumped out of the plane. And when you skydive, just remember it. One of the you literally jump into the emptiness of nothing. There's nothing. And I remember screaming so, I mean, nobody hears it always, but that moment when you jump, you just scream, right? And my friend was sharing, like, so she remembers when she did it, she was like hanging on to the parachute and she was screaming. Of course, someone is behind you. You don't just jump by yourself if you are an amateur, okay? So you have someone with you. Also a good analogy, you want to have a coach or therapist with you. And that's what I do with my clients. I do spiritual skydiving with them. So you have that moment where you're just in panic because the system reacts that way, because you are jumping from a plane down into the nothingness. And then I felt that resistance in general on your journey is when we stay in that state of fear, holding that parachute, keeping our eyes closed, and really staying in that fear state while you are jumping, while you are basically flowing in nothingness. Now, at some point or another, you will arrive, you will land. At some point, that free flow is over and you land. On this spiritual journey, you sometimes don't know when you land. I'm still not landing. I'm still in this free fall. That's how the analogy really helped me. I felt that I left in February, I jumped, and there were stages that I was still like, oh my God, screaming and shouting, and parts in me were just like, I need a home, I freak out. And in that moment, I was, okay, took a deep breath. Oh, I'm still falling. I'm still not landing. I don't know when I'm going to land. So now I have a choice. I can enjoy the ride and open my eyes. And this is an analogy, energetically also. You let go of the feet, like you let go of holding on to the parachute, to say. You stop the screaming and yelling. You open up your eyes and you surrender. And you relax and you enjoy the free flow, because at some point you will land. Some of you might think, yeah, I'm going to die. I understand. However, holding on in resistance is not going to make it better. So the analogy of the skydiving is really about your own spiritual journey, or anything that you might experience where you feel like you are daring, you are jumping, you are following, you are doing things that your rational mind is telling you not to do. Where maybe the outside environment is telling you, are you freaking nuts, right? Most people wouldn't do what I do right now, and that's okay. You don't have to. You have your own version of your own journey, and just check in. Where are you on that journey? Maybe you haven't even jumped yet, and the resistance is about jumping. Maybe you jumped and you are in this free flow and you're freaking out. And now I invite you then to take a deep breath. And just see it as that free flow that you have to enjoy that short moment. And a short moment could be a few seconds, a few minutes, a few years, a few months. We don't know, a lifetime. For the soul, time is nothing. Maybe you are already landing, or maybe you landed already. It doesn't matter where your resistance is, but just check in and visualize that. Becoming a spiritual skydiver is surrendering to the right. And it does not mean that it feels also all the time joyful. It is scary. Of course it is. Not everybody jumps, right? But it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of commitment. It takes a lot of support for you to jump into what your journey is. And resistance is part of it. So I hope that this analogy helps you too, because I remind myself of it sometimes when I feel, oops, I'm closing up again, or my system is scared. And of course, I have many other tools in my pocket, but I wanted to just share that with you. And the other thing also is to set an intention can be very, very helpful. And to be gracious with yourself. Take the pressure off. Don't be too self-judgmental. A simple intention could be an intention that I use a lot while traveling, because it is for the system and the inner child and for several parts in us. It's scary when you are constantly in the unknown, where I'm going to stay, where it's going next, making decisions. Am I making the right decisions? The fear of making the wrong decisions, the fear of missing out. So many things that we get to deal with every single day. And then to take a breath and say, wow, to even acknowledge yourself for jumping, for being in this free flow, and to allow yourself to surrender and to also enjoy the journey, even in those moments when they're very challenging. So this is the skydiving analogy that I use, that I wanted to share with you, that hopefully helps you to handle your resistance on the journey as one piece. And otherwise, hopefully some of the other pieces that I shared are going to be helpful for you. Spiritual skydiver. What is your biggest takeaway from today? When you look into your own resistance, when you tune into the tips and things that I shared in your own way, what is your biggest takeaway? What is the most valuable thing you're hearing today that might help you to handle your own resistance in a more graceful and in a more positive, or in a more effective, in whatever way you want to call it? What is your biggest takeaway? And I'm going to repeat a few things that I said just to anchor them, because when there's also a lot of resistance, it's also good to come back to basics. We have the tendency to overcomplicate. We have the tendencies to overdo it, and the mind rationalize it. And there's so many things. Go back to basics. Take a deep breath. First, acknowledge that resistance is part of the journey, period. It's just part of the journey. How to handle it is a different story. First, take off the self-judgment around it. Then look, maybe there's even an opportunity to use resistance to find the underlying issue that wants to come up for healing. And then, of course, do the inner work, because just understanding it and just knowing about why resistance is there, because it's also a protection mechanism, an underlying protection mechanism of a vulnerability that is underneath the surface that you might not be consciously aware of. And if you feel and resonate with me, I'm opening up one spot to work with me privately. So if you are in this process on your journey and you feel you're falling, or you feel you're not jumping, or you feel you're landing and you're scared, whatever it is, if you feel you're ready to keep working and you're ready to grab the inner work and go on to a deeper level, and you resonate with me, just send me a message, because I only opened up one spot to work with me privately for this year. And I am looking for that one courageous, spiritual skydiver that wants to do the journey with me. Okay, let me see what comments are here. And my biggest takeaway is the sentence, at some point you will land. Ah, this is so good. I'm just going to take that in for a moment. And everybody who's resonating with that too. Yeah. Ah, so true. At some point you will land. Whatever that means, and when and how, we don't know. But it's just that knowing that at some point we will land. Beautiful takeaway. Thank you for sharing. And if you have a question or if you want to connect with me, reach out to me. I love to engage with you. In these comments also, when you share your biggest takeaway, it also really anchors deeper in you and you give someone else the opportunity to have an insight that you might have not thought of before. The last thing I'm going to say today, first of all, take a deep breath. Relax your body. Embrace resistance as part of the journey. As much as you can, remove self-judgment. And if it's there, be okay with that too. We are all in this ocean of life together. Different waves come up in different times. Sometimes you are in a storm, sometimes it's easy, sometimes the storm seems to be forever, and at some point the ocean will be quiet again. At some point you will land. Until then, enjoy as much as you can, and it's not always easy. I know it. I'm there with you. You are not alone. There's nothing wrong with you. Keep walking, keep doing the inner work, and come back next Monday for the Soul Infused Monday show. Thank you for being here today. I love you. I appreciate you. I hope you had some valuable insights. And if you're watching the replay or hearing this on a different platform, leave me a review, send me a message, share with me what is your biggest takeaway. And if you want to work closely with me privately, send me a message. I just opened up one spot starting in November. So hopefully I find the spiritual skydiver that is the perfect match. Much love. Have a fantastic rest of your Monday and inspired and meaningful week. Bye for now.